Houston, we're all about culture, music, and live performances. And there's a great one coming up. The Apollo Chamber Players are bringing With Malice Toward None to Miller Outdoor Theater, a multimedia concert inspired by Abraham Lincoln's famous words and what they mean today. It features music from composers like Black Vietnam veteran J. Kimo Williams, with special guests like Houston Poet Laureate Emeritus Deborah Deaton Luton. Catch it live on August 22nd. Free tickets are available starting August 21st at milleroutdoortheater.com.
Today on CityCast Houston, thousands of students are back in class today across the Houston Independent School District. So I'm sitting down with the state-appointed Superintendent Mike Miles to talk about what to expect this school year, student progress, and what's next for the state takeover of HISD. It's Tuesday, August 12th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Superintendent Miles, welcome back to CityCast Houston. I appreciate you taking some time out. It is the first day of school. What will you be looking for today on day one to see if the district is off to the right start?
So I'll be going to a bus barn first thing in the morning. You know, a big part of the first day of school, but the first week is transportation, and so we'll be looking at that and see how the teams are getting ready and getting out the door to make the first stop. Then I'll be going to schools. We in HISD we look at instruction, even on the first day. But in the classroom, we get right to it. Now, just to remind the listeners, this comes on the heels of some really great news about the student success. So you're going to see schools, there should be lots of celebrating, at least individually, classroom-wise.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I want to jump in on that because HISD did announce some great news, as you mentioned, that a bunch of schools have improved their state ratings or the letter grades that we're often used to seeing. Twice as many Houston kids are now attending A or B rated schools compared to when you arrived in Houston, and the number of F rated schools has dropped to 0. Just how big of a deal is this, and what's the key factor you attribute this to?
Look, we went from 56 F-rated schools 2 years ago to 0. And on the other end, we went from 93 A and B-rated schools to 197. So that means the overwhelming majority of our kids are attending A and B schools. And for the first time in the history of the accountability ratings, not one HISD student will be attending a failing school. And I know for some listeners, these are just numbers, but it means that more kids today, even on the first day of school, will be reading at grade level than ever before. Many more students will be doing math at grade level than ever before, science and the other subjects as well. And that's a huge thing for our kids because it means that the rest of their academic career is going to be stronger and their opportunities after high school will be stronger. If it's not college, then it'll be a high demand, high wage, high skill job. So that's what it actually means for our kids. Mm-hmm. If you step back in education, often zip code dictates how well your school will be doing. And I think in a lot of large urbans, they can identify with what I just said. But for the first time in HISD, the vast majority of our kids are close to, if not in, an A or B rated school.
That's amazing.
Zip code is no longer destiny in Houston.
Is there a key factor you attribute this to?
There's a lot of things, but the biggest thing is, and I know this sounds a little corny, but it's raising expectations for both our students and our teachers. Often struggling campuses or schools that have a D or F rating, the teachers or the administration doesn't teach the kids at grade level. They lower their expectation. And we have not done that. And our expectations for teachers also has been risen. And by the way, both teachers and students have risen to the level of expectation. And I think that's the number one thing. From a technical education point of view, we have just focused on the quality of instruction. All roads lead to that. In fact, I started by saying that when I'm looking, at the schools, we're going to look at instruction. We're going to look at ensuring that all teachers teach well, even on day one.
Okay.
And that's how you get to the outcomes that we have.
So expectations right away, hitting those, instructions. That means no F-rated schools this year. And that has been one of the main targets you were installed to achieve. And I think that some people think that your job is done here now, right? Like time to go back to local control. But in June, Texas Education Commissioner Mike Miles announced that the state takeover will last 2 more years. How should Houstonians make sense of that? Why not start the process sooner to transition back to local control since a milestone like this has been hit?
No, that's a fair question, but look, we got a lot of work to do still. Um, we still have 18 D-rated campuses, and we only have, I'd say only, but it's 197 A and B campuses. It should be 273 when we're done, because all kids, and all means all, need a great education. So we've got a lot of work to do. The other thing is, if you pull the supports and the strategies and the things we've been doing right now and you change them back, then you will see a regression. You will see more DNF campuses grow. We've narrowed achievement gaps considerably, but we still have a gap. We've grown on the state average. We now have 7 exams where we're above the state average, but we're below the state average in several still because we were so far behind. We've closed that gap, but we've got a lot of work to do in the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, yes, we've done great. The kids have done great. The teachers have done well, but the intervention can't stop today.
But no matter who comes in next, there's a chance they could undo your changes, right? So why does it matter when they come in?
You're right. A new team, an elected board could change policies, but my experience is if some strategy or reform initiative is working really well, and it's been working well enough for teachers and principals and actually parents to buy into that, then a new team will be loath to change it. And people will complain about it. Take, for example, the pay for performance that Dallas has in place.
Yeah.
Nobody's tried to change that in 12 years. Why is that? Even though at first there was a lot of concern about it or anxiety. And yet now there's a new, what we in education call a status quo bias, meaning there are enough people invested who are being served well by that, and schools that are being served well by that. You don't have any board or new superintendent that is ever going to change that. And the same thing will happen here. Having said that, yes, the question for the community when my team leaves and the board of manager leaves is what are they going to do to ensure that the gains we've made continue to be made.
Let's talk about special education because there's a lot of work left to be done there as well. And that has been another target that has to be met before the state's takeover ends, which maybe some Houstonians aren't aware of. And that includes providing full services and accommodations to roughly 20,000 students in special education across the district. Do you think that's something you can achieve this year? What would it take?
The special education bucket of the intervention is something we've been working on. And so we've improved our compliance with state and federal law. And more important, we've grown the proficiency level of our special education, special needs students. We are now above their peers in the state. So our SPED students in English are higher than the SPED students in English across the state. And so the most important thing for us is to improve the quality of instruction in special ed and ensure that our special needs students are getting the best education possible, but also improving the quality of their services. And we have data that suggests that our parents are happier now with what's happening in SPED. But again, I will say, just as you intimated, we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And the whole profession does, but we're going to continue to work on that and continue to meet the needs of our kids.
All right. The other thing I want to ask you about is what Mike Morath announced earlier this summer, that he was replacing 4 appointed members of the Board of Managers. And when that happened, some people pointed out that those 4 people who were replaced were also the board members who asked the most questions publicly about your administration's decisions. How do you respond to that, to the community members that ask about that? Was that just a coincidence?
First of all, the 4 board members, we owe them a debt of gratitude. 2 years on a board is really tough when you're a board of managers in a takeover situation. And the board members performed admirably, and so the community should be grateful for them. But it's a marathon in some ways, or it's a longer race, and so a certain amount of baton passing is to be expected. People might connect the dots they want to see. I can tell you that the board members, from my perspective, asked legitimate questions and we responded. And so I think they did a pretty good job, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Like me, you're probably looking for some good road trips to make the most out of summer. Well, let me tell you about Port Aransas. My family and I spent a weekend there, and we can't wait to go back because Port A is such a unique beach town. First, almost everybody rolls around the island in golf carts. It is so cool. Second, you can make sun-soaked memories by hanging out on the beach all day, or mix it up and try your hand at some surfing or parasailing. We did that and the entire family loved it. Or you can go fishing with one of the many charters setting sail from the harbor. Port A has something for everyone, and it's an easy drive from Houston, making it a great road trip destination. One visit and you'll see why generations of Texans have anchored their traditions to the island life. Go to visitportaransas.com and plan your trip to Texas's beach.
Got any fun trips coming up? One thing you probably haven't put on your packing list is learning the language. But with Babbel, you can start talking in just a few weeks. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel. And I also just persuaded my friend who's going to France this fall to learn French with Babbel, but that is another story. Babbel's extremely fun and intuitive. It's like having a private tutor in your pocket. Handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel's lessons are voiced by real native speakers and built with science-backed cognitive tools and interactive features to fit any learning style. I love a lot of the different Babbel features. The Babbel games for sentence building, Babbel speech recognition, which helps me get the pronunciation right. And now I'm really into Babbel's word of the day, which greets me on the homepage of the app. Every day, a new word revealed like a little surprise with a sentence to help contextualize it. It's like a daily treat for me. Studies from Yale, Michigan State, and other leading universities continue to prove that Babbel works. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Look, I want you to learn another language. So I'm teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Let's talk about enrollment because, as you mentioned, there's a lot to celebrate with the academic gains in HISD right now. But at the same time, families have been pulling their kids out of the district, and it has 13,000 fewer students compared to 2 years ago. Now, HISD is looking at the painful task of closing schools, and you announced last week that your team will bring a list of about 10 campuses suggested for closure to the board by December. What factors are you looking at as you decide which schools you put on that list?
The district has lost about 30,000 kids in 7 years. The largest decline was the year after COVID, when the district lost 15,000 students in 1 year. I think that was a 2021 school year.
Yeah.
And, obviously those students never came back. So it's a much bigger problem. Now, it's not much different than large urbans almost everywhere, the loss of enrollment. So during that time, though, we've not closed one school. So we have aging infrastructure, and we have some schools that we will consider that either have really low capacity and aging infrastructure utilization, and a term we call FCI, which is Facility Condition Index. It's the state of the building, the physical state.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're looking at right now. And yes, sometime in the winter, I'll be bringing to the board a list of schools that we propose.
And that is something that you promised, that you would not close schools in the first 2 years. So, definitely have lived up to that. And you didn't do that right away, but this is something that you will have to figure out. What do you mean by utilization, by the way?
It's the number of kids who are in the building compared to the number of kids that the building could serve. So if it's a 800 student body building, so it could seat 800 kids and only 400 are there, the utilization is 50%.
Can you give us any specific campuses that are under consideration right now for possible closure?
No, we are looking at a whole host of criteria, and so I don't want to be premature. I'll let the committee do its job.
Another thing about enrollment that a lot of districts are going to face, including HISD, is that a year from now, Texas is rolling out one of the biggest school voucher programs in the country, and HISD students will be able to access voucher money to leave the district for private schools. And we've seen other states with voucher programs like Arizona and Florida that have really struggled with keeping students in public schools, and some campuses have had to close. What's your strategy to keep HISD's enrollment strong when vouchers roll out next year? And are you concerned at all?
Our strategy is to ensure that we have 273 schools that are educating kids well and preparing them for year 2035 world and workplace. And I think if we do that well, but provide them the reading, writing, math, science that they need foundationally, but also considering the things that they need in the future, that's what I mean by year 2035 world and workplace, then I think we will be competitive no matter what comes around. I think some of the enrollment loss over the last 7 years is because we had 121 DNF campuses, just over 2 years ago. And parents don't want their kids in an F-rated school or even a D-rated school. So I think that's part of the reason why. So if we bring our schools back to A and B status, and we do that over time. I mean, 1 or 2 years is good, but parents want to see that happening over the long run. I think we'll start getting them back, and we'll be able to compete with the voucher.
No, absolutely. I hear you. And providing all students with a great education, that is fundamental. And I agree with that. And that is great. But I have to point out that even in Arizona, the Washington Post reported that many of the schools that closed, they had solid and even high academic ratings. So even that doesn't mean it's a recipe to save the schools from losing students. Do you have any other strategies that you're looking at?
There are strategies we're looking at to provide our students with the best education possible. And then if we do have kids in the area, students in the area who are taking advantage of vouchers, we have a competitive advantage in many things. For example, nobody can do career tech ed like we can. We have the money, the facilities. We're going to expand our facilities. People who take advantage of vouchers, and I'm not opposed to that. I'm just my mission is to have 273 high functioning schools, but we can provide courses that are under enrolled here to kids who take advantage of vouchers, and we can say, hey, there's 2 welding spots open in this program, and you can sign up for that. Let's say a parent doesn't know how to do math and they're homeschooling their kid, taking advantage of vouchers, and we can say, hey, you can zoom into this math class because nobody does it better than HISD. So those are some things that we'll be thinking about. But the main thing I want everybody to know is I've actually got a pretty good focus on what my job is. And my job is any school in HISD, we need to make as strong as possible, as effective as possible. We need to make it an A-rated school.
And that starts with teachers, by the way, right? You have to have great teachers. And I saw this report by the Houston Chronicle that they recently reported again that on another year of higher than normal teacher departures this summer. And I know you've pushed back on some of those numbers in the past and have pointed out that teachers who received the best evaluations had higher retention rates. But I hear a lot of concerns from community members and listeners about their favorite teachers leaving. Are you concerned about turnover rates, especially with teacher shortages?
Teacher shortage is a real problem in the state and the nation. It's not a problem in HISD. I found out we have at this moment just 4 teacher vacancies out of 10,000, 300 or 400 teachers. Now, so 2 things to focus on. Number one, teachers are coming to HISD. And I don't think any other district in the area, and certainly no large district in Texas can say the same thing, that they have very few vacancies relative to the number of teachers that they have. The second thing is, for the second year in a row, we are retaining our strongest teachers. And so I think our exemplary teachers are staying at an 89% retention rate. Our proficient teachers at 85. By the way, the average in the state of Texas is about 80. The same with this district.
Okay.
Before I got here, the retention rate is at 78, 79 every year. So we're a little higher than that right now, but it's only a problem if you don't retain your best and brightest, number one, and number two, if you can't get teachers here. So we feel really confident and happy about the teachers that have signed up to do this hard work. Just like last year, they stepped up. Even our new teachers, even the teachers working towards certification, got trained up quickly and supported to the point where they can still get good results for kids.
One last thing on teacher retention. How do you respond to educators who say that they feel like they've been pushed out from HISD?
There's always a choice to work at a district. We have a high performance culture here. We've raised expectations. That's a fact. And we welcome all the teachers who are willing to do what it takes to help kids and then are actually getting outcomes for kids. So if you want to be student focused and put students first, that's what it takes. And that's our focus. Our focus is putting kids first. I know a lot of people say that, and then their actions actually don't show that. But that's what I would say. So if you're an effective teacher and you want to work for HISD, we welcome those teachers and we will support them. And that's why people are coming to HISD.
With today being back to school, I want to change gears a little bit and do a lightning round because there are a few noteworthy topics this year that everyone is talking about. And I want to make sure that parents, students, and teachers have the information they need from you. So I'm going to name a few topics, and can you tell our listeners what they need to know in about 30 to 60 seconds? Is that cool?
Yeah, that's cool.
Transportation. I know you've made some great changes. Your administration made changes to busing and also a new partnership with Metro. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we don't want kids riding the bus too long. We want to make sure that if we're going to have a 60-passenger bus, that it just doesn't have 4 kids on it. This district spent $56 million transporting 9,000 kids the year I got here. That's very inefficient. People saw these big yellow buses running around with just 2 or 3 kids in them. That's just so inefficient. So we have a team that's been working all spring and summer to try to optimize routes, try to do fleet optimization. That means getting the right size bus and the right size route. And so we feel really good about that. And part of it is working with Metro, because there's already routes that kids could take. If it's better for them to take a Metro route, why not? It's cost effective. So I think at this point we have 700 or 800 students that have signed up for this, and probably after school starts, there'll be a couple hundred more. So yeah, I think we're going to see a much better system.
Let's keep it moving. Cell phone ban.
We banned cell phones last year in our schools. And yes, we did allow the high schools to determine whether or not they wanted kids to use it at lunchtime. We now have a state law that says students will not be able to use cell phones on school property during the school day. That's more rigorous than ours, but we will follow the law. So cell phones will be banned when a kid walks in the door until the last bell.
New teacher evaluations and pay for performance plans.
So we've had a rigorous evaluation system. We took T-tests and we made it much more rigorous. And it was approved by the state, of course. And so now we will still have a rigorous evaluation system, meaning most of a teacher's scores, evaluation scores, are tied to achievement and the quality of their instruction. Those are the two biggest things. And now, once they get their evaluation at the end of the year, they will be paid for their evaluation score the following year, right? So their pay will be tied to their evaluation.
What's the T-test? Is that just the teacher evaluation?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Use these acronyms. T-test is the evaluation system that we used last year and the first year, and now it's our TES, or Teacher Excellence System, is the current evaluation.
All right, let's talk about the Sunrise Center, because HISD added another one, bringing the total to 8, but there have been ongoing questions about whether enough community members are actually using them, especially after your administration ended the wraparound program that put specialists at every campus. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we added a Sunrise Center. We're serving thousands of parents at each of the Sunrise Centers, not just students, but families at each of the Sunrise Centers. And it's a more holistic and actually more effective way of providing services. So that is ongoing in our schools. We have Hazel Health, which is another way of providing health services to kids. We still have food banks in most of our schools and clothing racks to help our students, and many different types of services, counseling, social workers, et cetera, depending on the need. So we feel pretty good about expanding the ability of our students and their families to get services.
You've made so many different changes. What are some that don't get talked about enough, right? Like, I think some people have these ideas of HISD schools becoming strict test prep factories, libraries that function as team centers, traffic cones outside bathrooms, classroom strategies like turn and talk every few minutes. But few Houstonians, Superintendent Miles, other than educators and students, get a chance to see these schools in action. What do you wish that people understood better?
I think most of the parents are starting to understand what's happening in their schools. And in fact, they probably always did understand what was going on in the schools. I think you have a small group of people who really dominate a lot of the coverage. But the things you just said, like test prep, in the end of the day, students are reading better. That can't be staged. That's not fake. It's about the quality of instruction. It's about the education that they're getting. And the kids are happier and they're thriving. I mean, Friday, most schools will celebrate their achievement, and there's going to be huge celebrations because kids are reading better. They're doing math better, and they feel good about it. And, at some point, you have to assess whether they're reading better and doing math better. So you have to take some sort of assessment. But the kids are doing well. And so they're going to be happier for it. But we do so many other things that prepare kids for year 2035 world and workplace. For example, one of the things that kids need is perspective. They need to be able to understand a changing world. So, for example, you have lots of different programs and experiences in the dyad. We call it dyad. What that means is students in the new education system schools, 130 schools, get, on top of their electives, experiences like piano, photography, martial arts, graphic design, many different things taught by community members. And that happens twice a week for every kid in 130 schools.
Wow.
3,700 such courses a week. 3,700. That's a lot of kids getting these experiences. We have in all of our high schools, we started an AI in the workplace elective in every high school. We have different programs of study now that we started and initiated, like for high school kids, like network systems, distribution, entrepreneurship, healthcare. And network is like part of that overlaps cybersecurity.
Yeah.
It's we're expanding Barbara Jordan to include drones and better health systems to get them started on being an EMT, for example. So there are lots and lots of things that's happening in HISD. That's also why you see the students thriving and pretty happy with the education that's going on.
That sounds fantastic. And it sounds like they're going to be celebrating this week and throughout the year with these great services and extracurricular courses. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. And as always, thank you for joining us here on CityCast Houston. And here's to a great year.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was State Appointed Superintendent Mike Miles. Parents, I would love to hear from you regarding your experience in HISD. Leave us a voicemail by calling 713-489-6972 so I can play it on a future episode. Before we go, I have a quick favor to ask. CityCast is doing our annual listener survey, and it would really help us out if you took it. Please take the survey at citycast.fm/survey. It's only 7 minutes long, plus survey takers will also be eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card and CityCast Houston swag. That's citycast.fm/survey. And if you took it last year, we would be grateful if you took it again, since we can't use last year's data anymore. Be sure to share this episode with 3 people who have students in HISD so they can learn more about what the superintendent is planning for this school year. If you're new here, thank you so much for giving CityCast Houston a try. Now hit that subscribe button so you can get more episodes every weekday morning in your podcast feed. We also have a roundup of the top news in H-Town every day in our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, with the info in our show notes. So definitely subscribe to that and check it out. And finally, a big thank you to Asher Layer Small for helping us produce this episode. That will do it for today. I'm Raheel Ramzanali. Thank you for listening and good luck to all the students.